that you see the beginnings of Capex. Take the floor.
Yeah, my first question will be a very simple one. Are you seeing any signs of order book pickup? Are you seeing any inquiries from your customers? Are they actually starting to work on some capital?
To whom are you addressing it?
Well,
Mr. Husain?
Yes. So let's go for Mr. Husain first.
Well, in the sectors and the industries that we operate in, we are not seeing any signs yet of Capex recovery. In fact, if we look at the inquiry bank that we have on hand, the active inquiries that are going on, even compared to a year ago, they are less. Okay, so we don't yet see signs of Capex recovery.
Okay. Well, that point is taken, Mr. Husain, but are you seeing more talk? Are there preliminary inquiries? I mean, we hear that the railways are determined to spend about 75,000 crores this year. We've also heard that the road sector has been sanctioned 40,000 crores. For the first time, money has been taken away from subsidies and it is going into investment in the Indian budget. So is there any initial talk, I mean, something that will translate into L1s 6 months down the line?
Well, at any given instant of time, there will always be some sectors, some industries which would be looking at Capex, and that indeed is the case even now. What I am talking about is on overall scenario, an aggregated scenario, where say, are we seeing more Capex requests or planning in the industries that we serve? You're right about railways. If you look at renewable sector, I think same story. There is, of course, people putting up money there.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I'll go to Mr. Unnikrishnan with the same question. Are you sensing that the capital spending inquiries in your businesses are showing some tick up?
Since Thermax operates from the small scale industry to the largest and supercritical parts, it is not the same story repeated in all the sectors. So I will agree with my friend Bazmi. On certain sectors where there is no reform requirement, only a consumption increase can accelerate Capex cycle. I am seeing changes happening, and I need to admit that in some of the sectors there are an increase input of inquiries coming in, not finalizations, but inquiries. Inquiry bank is increasing, especially in light engineering. It is also in textiles in a selective way, breweries, distilleries, some amount of privatization of the closed sugar factories which are getting reopened. I mean, there are, of course, drugs and pharma again reinvesting. A lot more of medium and small size European companies coming to India, looking at the Indian growth story. I think the Make in India somehow is playing in that. But none of these are going to be helping either Bazmi or me or us to be having increased percentage growth to be reported. Similarly, I also need to say that where the government can make some difference, in the power sector, though I had been consistently mentioning that that's the last one to be reopening, the NTPC and the state sector seem to be coming out of the tenders, and I'm expecting the current year some of them will get concluded, which will be an improvement over the previous year. Okay. So are these green shoots, or is it just isolated incidences which you can't make it into a story? I would leave it at that this point of time.
Okay, that's a photo finish actually, Mr. Unnikrishnan. We wanted a 2-minute break from this conversation because the markets have just opened, and they've opened with a dash of green, you will have to say. So your optimism has rubbed on, at least for the moment. It's a 0.2% uptick both on the Sensex and the Nifty, though the mid-caps are a lot better. On the Sensex and the Nifty, the banks are doing a little bit of the heavy lifting because that index is up 4.4%. So I'll quickly read out to you the stories that are doing well. I think Rhythm and Unnikrishnan have kind of given hints to the market. BHL is the top gainer, up 1.13, 1.26 as I speak. NTPC is the next one. Mr. Unnikrishnan referred to that, expecting orders from that company 1.2% higher. And then come the rest. Actually, the CCS also, your optimism on IT stocks, 1% higher. Let me read about the banks. SBI is up 1.2%, Bank of Baroda 1.06%, HDFC, the mortgage guy, up almost 1%, and then come the rest. The other banking stocks are a little less, about 0.5% gain in IndusInd Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, HDFC Bank, and such like. I didn't see ICICI. What's ICICI doing at this point in time? Okay, that's the lowest of the gainers, 1/3%, but all the banks are in the green. BPCL up 1.2%. Anuj was pointing out that it was showing delivery-based buying. And then you have Ultratech up about 1%. Okay, Axis, I forgot, up 1%. Infosys up 1%. L&T up almost 1%. Tata Power 0.8%. ITC 1%. HCL Tech 0.8%, thereabouts. M&M 0.8%. So it's across the board. You're seeing banking stocks, you're seeing Capex-oriented capital goods stocks, all of them in the green. What's in the red? Expectedly, Tata Steel. There is a bit of a sentimental downtick because of that impairment of goodwill on the long products division in the UK. Sun Pharma also negative because there is what looks like a shareholder suit against Ranbaxy, down 1%. And then there's Coal India down 1%, which is a little surprising because we had Piyush Goyal telling us that Coal India's output in the first 46 days of the current year is 11% higher. It's something Coal India has never done in its lifetime. So this may be a passing phase. But Sonia, quickly the mid-caps doing a little better?
Oh yes, very good start to the market. So up 0.7%. The market breadth is very healthy at 4:1 in favor of the advances. The big stock to focus on is Jubilant FoodWorks. It's up almost 8% after reporting a very strong set of numbers this quarter. But it has many other companies for company. So Bank of Maharashtra is up 13% after reporting a good quarter this time around. You had Subex that reported a growth of 21% in their top line, the best in many quarters that they've seen. So Subex is up 16% as we speak. Manappuram General Finance, as we were just speaking with the management, disbursement growth has been very healthy this quarter, so up 6% there. And a couple of others as well. JK Tyre seeing a bit of positive momentum to its margin improvement this time, so that one is up about 4%. On the downside, Metallist Forgings, remember the Amtech Group has reported a very disappointing set of numbers. Ahmednagar Forging, which is now called Metallist Forgings, is down 12% after reporting weak numbers, and Amtech Auto as well under pressure. But let's continue our chat that we have been having on the any sign of recovery in the capital goods space. Mr. Unnikrishnan, I wanted to discuss one theme with you, which we've noticed from a lot of manufacturing players, which is the slowdown in exports. Whether it's in markets like Europe or even some of these African markets where currencies are depreciating quite a bit. Do you see more pain on the export front?
Not a generic way. And if I had to look at the inquiries on hand and under discussion right now in continent to continent, if you talk about, since we have operations in Europe, we've seen a very bad year last year in Europe, but the first quarter looks a little better in terms of inquiry inflow for our subsidiaries over there. Is it selective only to green energy or the kind of area that we are into, or is it generic to the market? I will not be able to say. But Indian companies predominantly export components to the European continent, and I do believe they should see a betterment in the current year. The worst is over for Europe is my belief, at least the main economies. Don't get unduly carried away by the Greek problem with the EU. That will be a distraction rather than be getting really worried about business over there. Southeast Asia, as the market has not shown any negative trend. However, you're right, entire Middle East is going to sleep now. Because despite a minor recovery in oil, they aren't declaring any newer projects. African continent, a couple of countries, especially Nigeria, despite the oil price reduction, I'm very much aware of the fact that they may be coming out with a refinery on their own, fairly large in size. There is sporadic investment happening in some other countries because Africa is not one market. It's not isolated smaller markets. So I wouldn't want to make a judgment on Africa as a whole. Some countries in Africa are in difficulty, but otherwise there is nothing substantially reducing. See, the anchor economy for most of them are China, Africa at this point of time, America and Europe to a certain extent. We aren't seeing any negative signs in three of these markets at this point of time. China may have a negative growth in domestic market, but their funding available to Africa is only going up. So I would see projects coming up in Africa too. going forward.
Okay. We have to revisit that European theme with Mr. Bazmi as well. He must be getting a ground report practically on a daily basis. But before that, just a word on the markets. This is a very sound start. I mean, 0.5% higher on all the indices, and the advanced declines, 3 stocks in the green for 1 in the red. Anuj, you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I think the mid-cap space is the one to focus on, Lata, but again, just going by the FI data and the derivatives market, this is something which is a bit of an issue, because yesterday also there was quite a bit of short build-up that you saw. So the 8300 to 8350 is the zone in which I think the market may have a bit of a resistance. In fact, that's the point I was discussing with Rhythm as well before he came to the studio, and he was making a point that the cash market volume right now is not indicating anything. We have to focus on the F&O market.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's mostly arbitrage actually.
Okay.
So I wouldn't read much into it. I don't think it's fresh shorting. I think it's arbitrage.
Okay, and that will get covered at.
Yeah, well, arbitrage is you
at the end of the contract.
You sell the cash, buy the futures, you cover, and the arbitrage then gets.
So this is totally arbitrage, or can we read a bit more?
No, I'm suspecting that. I don't think these are positions at which there are fresh shorts being built, but I may be wrong. I mean, you can only suspect, you can only analyze.
Okay, if we can toss our argument on Capex cycle and Sonia's angle about exports. Mr. Bazmi, you wanted to add anything? How is the European scene looking like? And do you think Indian companies in the last 3-4 years, having had to tighten their belts, improve their margins, and having to look outside for orders, are likely to do a little better even in a slightly crunched global situation?
Yeah, I would agree with Suri that I think the Indian export story is going to grow, and I think that's due to several factors. One is that we're starting on an export basis, from a low base. So we're not yet exposed that much to market fluctuation for us to grow. So growing in market share, I mean, there's always a market. The markets are never dead. It's just that how fast growing or not. So I think for us to continue to grow, I think is very much possible. So one quarter might be this way or that way, but I don't think that changes the trend. As far as ABB is concerned, being a multinational, we're pretty much present and manufacture in many other places around the world. So we cover markets all over. But in the last, I would say, 5-7 years, India has increasingly become important for ABB for a global, from a global strategy point of view. When you look at Africa, I think India, or exporting from India, is certainly one of the cornerstones of the strategy that we have. There are many factories that we have where we are global feeder factories, so wherever you buy equipment, that is actually coming from factories in India. So I think whether a particular market is growing or not growing at the rate at which it should, I think our opportunity to grow in exports will continue for several years at least.
Yeah, I had one question actually. The government has increased outlays in this budget, especially in roads and railways, but not so much in the power sector. Are you seeing some stuff in the power sector that may be impacting your businesses positively? Are there more orders, for example, say in transmission, year over year?
Clearly, if you look at, from a generation point of view, we are in a situation where we can say that we have excess power and we have deficient amount of generation. If you look at it from consumption per capita, then clearly we are a lot deficient. We need a lot more power generation. But if you look at the capacity utilization, we have well over 260 gigawatts installed capacity. We never exceed more than 140 gigawatts at peak. Okay, so from that point of view, what we need is not really more power at the moment from a generation point of view. is the transmission distribution part. I think that has to grow. And so, yes, there is continued investment in the transmission sector. But what really I think needs to happen is more has to happen on the distribution side for the whole industry to grow as such.
Point taken, Mr. Husain, Mr. Unnikrishnan. Thank you very much for joining us in this discussion.